Hello and happy almost February. Welcome to the February coffee chat. Though it's February for you, just not February for me. I'm here in my sad Christmas tree-less piano room. We haven't decided if we're gonna switch these rooms back or not yet. But I am still sad about Christmas being taken down. It is February. We have some stuff to chat about. So there's a couple of little TPT updates, a couple of just thoughts I want to share. We're going to talk today about taxes because a lot of people are asking me about taxes and just a couple other things. So why don't you grab a cup of coffee or tea or whatever. I'm going to grab my cup of coffee and we're going to go meet in my office and have a little chit chat about the past month and the next month and what's going on. And I'd love to hear what's been going on with you down in the comments. All right, coffee's been acquired in my last remaining Valentine's Day mug. We have been purging, and so I got rid of, I think, all my Valentine's Day mugs except this one because it just has a heart, and I was like, okay, we can do a heart. Valentine's Day is not my favorite holiday in general. It's a little bit too cutesy for me a lot of times, and I enjoy that in like cutesy teacher land, but in my house, I'm a little bit like, I don't want that. So we've been getting rid of tons of stuff. Wow, that was close up. You're welcome for that. We've been getting rid of tons and tons of stuff. And so that was a big one for me. Let me get you set up and we'll get to it. Here we are already. I'm wearing a very wintry outfit, but we have our Valentine's Day mug, so there we go. Yeah, so we have quite a bit to talk about. First of all, January's over. January was a very long month. It wasn't a bad month, but it was a very long month. It was one of those you got to the end and you were like, oh my gosh, that was all in the same month? And the answer is yes. It was also a very busy month, which I didn't love coming back like into the new year because normally January is pretty chill. And what I like about that is then I can like devote a lot of time toward working on my goals, especially in my business. This time that did not happen because it was so busy. We had just stuff. There was one week I literally was home like one night on time. Like it was crazy. I had auditions at school for the musical, and I had this at school, and I had that, and I had like a church thing I had to do, and like there was just a lot going on. And that's not a bad thing necessarily, but what it means is that I didn't have a ton of time to work on my goals, and that's something I really have been trying to take into account is when I start planning a month, looking at how busy it is before I start determining like what I want to accomplish. And that's very helpful because, as you know, things go back and forth, and sometimes they're a lot busier in some areas than other areas. And so sometimes, you'll have a lot of things that are like personal life, and sometimes you have a lot of things that are, business, and sometimes you have a lot of school stuff. I wasn't anticipating January being so school heavy, but it really was. It was just kind of crazy and kind of chaotic. February is gonna have less of that, but February is very busy on the weekends, and I think I already have like 3 giant things, like all day things on 3 of the Saturdays out of the 4 Saturdays of February. So also keeping that in mind as I'm working on what is going on for, next year. Right now it looks like I'm probably going to land, as far as money goes, about the same as I was last year. I would obviously love for it to be a bit more, but it is what it is. Especially being that like I haven't had that much extra time to work on things. That's okay. One thing I have worked on in January though, I have obviously like I've done some work, but not as much as I would have liked to. But a big thing for me in January has been like morning routine and really making sure that I'm like starting the day off correctly. And I have a lot of habits that I'm working on this year, but I've decided to have like a focus habit. And so my focus habit was getting up on time. My afternoon routine has been a disaster because I've been so busy. So that's something I'm gonna work on more in February. But I've really overhauled and like changed things a little bit, and so it ends up, I think, working out better, and I have been very good about getting up on time, and so that has been really, really great. In January, books that I have read, I read 4. Where'd I put the other one? Please hold. Persevered. I read 4 books in January, which is pretty good. I have been closer to like 3 a month, and I want to push closer to like 4 a month. My official goal for this year is 40. So I read a couple things. First off, The Richest Man in Babylon. This one is really fabulous, especially if you're looking, it's a money book, by the way. So it goes over a lot of like really practical, useful principles of like how to divide up your money and how to think about your money and things like that. But they're all parables, they're all like stories, so they're interesting. And I picked it up and I was kind of like, is this gonna be good? But I heard a lot of people talk about it, so I decided to grab it. And it was one that it had things in there that even myself, as a person who has read many books about money and has looked, you know, done a lot of research and thinking and all that, I still found some things in there that I found enlightening. So I would highly recommend that one for you. I'll link these down below, by the way. The next one I read was The Psychology of Money. I've also heard really good things about this one. It was not what I thought it was going to be, but it was very interesting. It goes through like different, basically like money myths and things to think about, and it was really interesting. I thought it was gonna be a little more, it was less psychological than I thought it was gonna be, so that could be good or bad depending on your views. Then fiction wise, I read Isabel Allende's A Long Petal of the Sea. I have been working on this book for like 2 months. It has taken me forever to read. It was interesting, but it definitely was not quick. It's not that long, but it was not a quick book, so that's your warning. It was interesting though. It follows a family through the Spanish Revolution, and then they end up immigrating over to Chile, and then Chile has a lot of political unrest, and so there's just like a lot of things going on, and kind of the whole idea of the book is like life still goes on and you keep moving and you keep going, and there's always something to live for. And I did enjoy it, but it took me forever, so for that reason my star rating was only at a 3 because I just could not do it. Now, one I could not put down was this one that I just finished yesterday, called I Was Anastasia. This one's by Ariel Lahan? I don't know. And it is about the Grand Duchess Anastasia, the youngest of the Russian Tsar's daughters. And so it's parallel perspective. It's her, and then as well as future tense Anna Anderson, who, without spoiling anything, is also a real lady who claimed to be Anastasia Romanoff. I'm not going to tell you what actually happens in the story, but in the story you do find out whether or not it is true. There's your hint. And so it's dual perspective. The interesting thing is the earlier timeline, like Anastasia through the Russian Revolution, is chronological, and then the other timeline is reverse chronological. So at the beginning it's like chronological. So at the beginning it's like the beginning of Anastasia's story, the end of all the lawsuits and everything of Anna Anderson trying to get recognized as the Tsar's only living relative. And then they end up like the end is them meeting in the middle, the two timelines, which was a really interesting way to read it. I would say I was a lot less interested in all of the like court cases and all of like who, you know, Grand Duchess Anastasia was living with throughout the years, because she like basically bounced around to all different houses and stuff. I was less interested in that and more interested in the first timeline of like Russian Revolution, that kind of thing. So there were some times that I felt kind of irritated to be like pulled out of that timeline into the other timeline, which normally I love a dual perspective book, but that's my little thing. It was really good, could not put it down. There are a few moments of like, you know, it's war, so it does get gory a few times, but not like too descriptive. It's not bad, but just FYI. And I really enjoyed it. I would give it a 4, but I'm mad about the ending, so I'm giving it a 3 out of 5 because, and I'm aware, like I know that it should be a 4, but also I'm grumpy about the ending because I don't like how it ended, and I understand why it ended that way, but I'm still mad about it, so giving it a 3. I will link those down below though if any of them strike your fancy. this year I started a reading journal, which is a video that will be coming out soon with like the startup things. But one thing that I was excited about was the idea of being able to take notes, but also take like pretty notes. And so I have made a spread for each of the books I've read so far. I mean, it's only been 4. So I have like Richest Man in Babylon, and just kind of having like, you know, make it kind of look like Age of Babylon, Psychology of Money. And I have mostly it's just written things in here like quotes that I've liked and key takeaways and action items. That was a big thing for me. I wanted to have like actual action items to do. And then each of the fiction books I did just like a half page, but here's like the boat taking them to Chile and the palace in Russia. And yeah, so that's not really related to anything, but I wanted to share because I've been talking about how I've been using, how I started all these notebooks. I want to share that I am using them, first of all. Secondly, just I've been really enjoying it. It's like a really fun, simple thing I can do like in the evenings while I'm like watching TV. It's just to sit there with like my markers and some paper and some double-sided tape and it just, you know, add a little bit of fun based on like a book I've read. And they're all different, as you can see, because all the books have been different. And so it just kind of gives you like a fun, almost like a prompt to just make like a fun little spread and then talk a little bit about like things that I have thought about. So I've been really enjoying that so far. I've been looking for easy ways to implement more like art and crafting and things like that into my life because I love those things so much. But I don't always have time to like go and sit down and paint a picture or even use my Cricut, like, you know, because those are time consuming things and I don't always, and I love them, but I don't always have the time to like sit down and spend, you know, an hour or two working on something. So this has been fun because it's like a quick little thing I can do and it's fun and I can do it while I'm watching TV and just kind of like chill on the couch. And it just kind of like gives me a little bit of closure on the books, and then I'm hoping it'll help me remember things that I have read as well as things in the books that I've read, because I'm doing things like having summaries and having those key takeaways. And there's a lot of research that says the people who summarize things and have those key takeaways and like those kind of things actually remember things better. So that's one of my big things for this year. So those are my books. I will leave those down below. Another reason that January was very busy, even despite having read 4 books, is I had a lot of presentations this month. I had an online words are not wording today. I've said that to the kids like 8 times. An online like conference that I submitted a video for. So I had that going on, and then I also had an in-person conference. I presented at the Georgia Music Educators Association, which was like huge for me. I feel very honored that they picked me, and I was so honored by all the people that were there. The room was so packed. I was not expecting that. And it was so nice to like talk to all the people, but I had that. And then I also, tomorrow actually, I'm giving a talk at my school about ways to implement music into the curriculum because we're a STEAM school. So I'm a little nervous about that because I'm like, I just got here. Which is probably how I'm gonna start. I'd be like, hello, I just got here. So, you know, take everything with a grain of salt, but you know, there we are. But it's been good. It has been an interesting, busy thing to do, but it's been good. With presenting, 2 things that I want to mention. First of all, like I said, the room was really packed. I talked to a lot of people who use my content, and I had an interesting variety of, some people were like, hey, I watch your videos. Some people were like, hey, you know, I follow you on Instagram. And some people were like, oh, I use your blog all the time. And it was interesting that it was so widespread, but the people who use my blog definitely outweighed everybody else. Like, there were so many people that were like, oh, I read your blog. Oh, I go to your blog all the time. Oh, I'm always on your website. And that was really interesting and eye-opening about the power of blogging specifically. And you know, I had one person who said they follow me on Instagram, but I had, I mean, probably 10 people who were just at that conference who were like, oh yeah, I go to your blog all the time. I'm always following your blog, like, you know, that kind of stuff. And so that was really eye-opening of like how much that can help, especially I would say for informational things. Like this channel here on YouTube is a lot more like fun, and we're, you know, doing bullet journaling and we're doing planning and like we're doing those kind of things that are not necessarily, maybe not as, maybe it wouldn't lend themselves quite as well to a blog. Obviously you could totally make blog posts about it. I may or may not do that one day. I've definitely thought about it. But I feel like this format works better for this because it's like, let's take you along. But for informational stuff especially, I would say I find that blogging still really works. And so if you are like, I don't know about this blogging thing, let me just urge you to do that. The other thing is, when you have blog posts, you have like this whole body of work that you've done. And so when people are like, oh, I need lessons, I'm like, great, I have 200 posts on my blog you can go check out. And just having like that whole backlog, or, you know, when someone asks me a question and I can send them a blog post, makes such a big difference. Makes you look a lot more professional, makes you just, you know, like, look at all these things that we have. If you're giving a talk or presentation, I would highly suggest a couple of things. First of all, I would pick a topic you are very well versed in. So for example, I did like my favorite lessons for 4th and 5th graders. That is something I could talk about all day long because they're my favorite. Like, I use them every year, I use them all the time. So I had plenty to talk about. I knew the content forward and backwards, and that was the thing I kept telling myself, like, when I'd start to feel nervous. Like, there's nothing to be nervous about. You know this content, like, you know it so well. Also, go through and do practice your presentation a couple of times. You don't want to like read it cold. Like, you know, here I mean I make like little notes, but I'm not like reading word for word. I'm not practicing this beforehand. But for like a presentation, especially one that people are paying money to go see, then you want to make sure that it is very professional. And so you want to have those things ironed out beforehand. You don't necessarily have to make a script. Like, I didn't make a script, but I did go through all my slides and talked through and basically presented to myself multiple times so that I was familiar with that. I also picked a topic, actually the whole presentation I have done at an online conference, which means that I already had everything done. I already had everything ready to go. I didn't have to like remake everything, and I knew it really well because I've given it before and I've gotten good reviews. So that if you can kind of like tease it on YouTube or tease it on Instagram, even if you don't share the whole thing, just a little bit, that could be another way to help boost your confidence if you're feeling a little nervous about presenting. And finally, if you're feeling nervous about presenting, that's what I tell people all the time. There's no need to be stage fright, because teachers spend their whole day public speaking. Like, I spent all day talking to 25 or 30 kids at a time. Like, it's very normal. So you don't need to feel weird. Like, just because they're the same height as you does not mean that it's really any different. Like, it's the same thing. I mean, don't talk to them like they're stupid, but it's the same thing. That's what I'm gonna be keeping my mind on tomorrow while I am going through, you know, and giving things to teachers at my school. Now, in other news, specifically TPT news, a couple of new things have come out. First of all, you can now add multiple resources to a custom category at the same time. And wow, do I wish they had set this up a long time ago. So to do this, you just go to your product listings, go to manage my product categories, and then there's like little 3 dots. And if you click that, you can easily add and remove things. Thank you, TPT. That is one of the most helpful things you have done ever, because that is something that I spent a lot of time messing with personally. And so that is super helpful. So that's number 1. Number 2 is I haven't looked at this, but they said in the email you're supposed to be able to copy the note to followers. I haven't tried it yet, but we shall see. That would also be awesome. The third thing that people have been talking a lot more about is TPT released rankings and percentiles. So if your store made at least 1 sale this previous month, then you can get a ranking for your store. So you just go to your dashboard, and under like school access, it says store ranking, and you click on it, and then it tells you your number out of all the total TPT stores that have made a sale, and then your percentile. So I've had a lot of people ask me about mine, so like, sure, you can know. So as of December, my ranking was 321, so like 320 stores were better than mine, and that puts me in the 99th percentile, which sounds good, although I went and looked because I was curious. My Becca's Bible class, which makes like $200 to $400 a month, in December it was ranked 5,659 store, which puts it in the 94th percentile. So the percentile was what I wanted to see, because I wanted to see how different that was. So, you know, 5,000th puts you in the 94th percentile versus 300 puts you in the 99th percentile. So take from that what you will, but I thought it was very interesting. It's also a monthly thing, so it's based on like this one. Actually, it says December ranking. So by the time you see this, you should be able to see your January ranking. So I'm really curious to see how that changes, especially because I know that my store is a lot lower in December than in other months, and so I'm curious to see how that changes, because I assume that's probably normal for most people, but I'm still interested to see how it goes. It also gave me a lot of hope, because I was like, man, if 320 people are doing better than me, that means we can definitely make more money, right? Right. So I thought that was interesting. A lot of y'all have been asking, so that's where that is. I wouldn't be obsessed with the ranking. Like, my goal is not to be like #1, but it is interesting, and I kind of like having that tangible thing, because that's a lot easier than like looking at someone's store and being like, oh, are they better than me? Are they worse than me? Like, I don't know. So this gives me just like a tangible, like, here's where we are, here's what we're doing. Obviously that's not totally in your control, because like I have no control over what all the other people are doing, but it is still interesting to see. So there's your TPT news. Now, next up, we're gonna talk about taxes. Yay. I need 2 sips for this. Hello, Nyla. Do you want to tell them about your adventures in January? Nyla started the year, we went to a state park for New Year's, and then we ended January with a state park visit for my conference. We just stayed at a state park so that we could take the dogs, and so Andrew hung out there while I went to the conference all day. But yeah, we started and ended January with state park. So we went to George L. Smith in middle of nowhere, Georgia, for New Year's, and they have just cute little cabins there, and that was really fun. It was really cold. And then we went to Fort Yargo this past weekend, which was really pretty. I wish we had better weather, because it rained a lot, and so like the day that we could have actually like gone hiking and like done stuff, it was like pouring, and so we didn't get to hike at all, which really stunk. We took like some walks, of course, but you know, it's not the same thing. And like we were gonna make a fire, and then everything was wet, and so it was just, that was less fun. We had a really nice chill weekend, but it wasn't quite what I wanted. Anyway, let's talk about taxes. So income taxes are due soon. Yay. In the US, they're due April 15th. I have not checked to see if that is the date this year, because if it's like on a weekend or something, it shifts around a little bit. If you're not in the US, I have no advice for you. I have no idea. Actually, none of this is advice, it's all opinions. There you go. No, it's always a hot topic of like, do you need to report income and all that kind of stuff, because there's this whole thing about like hobby versus whatever. So here's what I'm going to tell you. This is what I found on the IRS website in hobby versus business. And it said, a hobby is any activity that a person pursues because they enjoy it with no intention of making a profit. If you intend to make money on TPT, you are a business. There you go. Congratulations. But specifically, if you are making over $600 is when you need to make sure you are reporting that. But you should report I mean, even if you made 20 bucks, you need to report that to the IRS. They're probably not gonna make you pay taxes on 20 bucks, but we shall see. If you make over 20,000 in the year, then TPT will send you a 1099. If you make less than that, they won't send you that, but you should go to your dashboard and just like download your sales data, and then you can turn that in as your proof that you made money. And you definitely want to report it no matter what. If you have a very simple return, then you can of course do that by yourself, but I would highly recommend that you do go to a tax professional, not just because I'm biased because my mom's a tax professional, but because really truly, especially as your business grows and gets more complicated, they know all the ins and outs, and they can help you with all those things that you may not know. Personally, I have like 8,000 income streams, and I have all these different expenses. Like, there's a lot going on, and it's a lot to take care of, and so having someone who knows what they're doing do it for me is really nice. So I'd highly recommend that, especially if you have multiple streams of income and all those different things. You can expense things that you spend for TPT. For example, I'm looking at my camera, and listen, I'm gonna need a new camera this year because it just keeps getting worse. And then I stopped and thought about it and was like, oh, I think I've had this camera for like 6 years, 5 years, 6 years, I don't know. that's probably a good life for a cameraman. I have hundreds and hundreds of videos, so like it's gotten its worth. But it's starting to not work quite so well, and so I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, oh, I'm probably gonna need a new camera soon. And when that happens, I will be expensing that because that is a business expense since YouTube is part of my business. There you go. Same thing with like my laptop's also acting up really badly, which I really needed to hang on a little bit longer because those aren't cheap, at least not the ones I want. And I've decided that every time I buy a computer or a phone or anything from now on, I'm gonna get it with like the most memory, because I hate, like, it is a constant battle of it being like, you're out of disk space, and I'm like, shut up. Like, just export my dang video. Like, it's just like I go through so much stuff, especially with videos, that I need the most memory possible. So that's not gonna be cheap, but those kind of things you can expense. Those are business expenses. So those, I'm looking at, like, I have a microphone. If you buy, you know, portable hard drives, USBs, any of those kind of things count as expenses. So make sure you have a list of those so that you can expense those, and so that comes off your profit essentially. And so the IRS like basically takes down how much money you have made, which you like, because then that means you pay less in taxes. So make sure you have a list of those things. Do not, if you're taking it to a tax professional, do not make them sit there and go through a million receipts. Like, have the receipts as proof, but have a list of like, this is what you need to know, because otherwise it's a pain in the butt. And if you find that you owe a lot of money, you should be paying quarterly estimated taxes, which is a conversation my mother and I have a lot. And the IRS says if you owe more than $1,000, you should be paying the estimated quarterly tax. Obviously that's too late for this year, but if this year you find like, oh, I owe more money than I thought I did, then you want to start paying those quarterly estimates for next year, and that'll also help you avoid in like the not paying enough fee. Also, a little aside, I use QuickBooks for all my business stuff, which is not necessary if you're just doing TPT. But if you're doing TPT and YouTube and courses, and you have 8,000 different income streams, and you have 8,000 different expenses, QuickBooks is super helpful because it automatically categorizes that, and you can link to your accountant, which means that when it's tax time, I'm just like, just go check the QuickBooks because everything's there. And that's really helpful. So that was the biggest chunk of things that people wanted to know in this coffee chat. A couple of quick things that people wanted to know, because I always ask y'all what you want to know on Instagram. It's at becca.e.davis, because I just, you know, want to make sure that I'm talking about things that you're interested in, and sometimes they are things I wouldn't have thought of. Like, I wouldn't have added that whole section about taxes, but I had multiple people ask me about taxes, so I was like, oh, that's something we want to know about. One thing that I thought was an interesting question is someone asked if I take afternoon naps. Do you take afternoon naps? No, you never sleep. You're a crazy dog who just goes and goes and goes, like the Energizer bunny. That's pretty accurate. No, I don't take afternoon. I would love to take an afternoon nap, but I don't even get home until 5 o'clock at the earliest. So it's not feasible. I do sometimes fall asleep on the couch at 8 o'clock. But that's not quite the same thing. So no, I don't take naps. Another question I got was asking about links in a PDF, and saying like the link works in PowerPoint, but it doesn't work when you make it a PDF. Yes, the point of a PDF is to flatten things, so links don't work when you put it into a PDF. So if you need to link something, you either need a software that can add links for you. So like Adobe is one that I use. I think I pay $15 a month. That's a business expense. So you can make links on Adobe and do it that way. If you don't have that, you can always export images. You can export your slides as images, reinsert them as backgrounds, and then add links over top of them. That's a lot more work, but it would save you a couple bucks. And then there's other products as well that can do kind of the same thing and add those links to it. But if you go from a PowerPoint or a Keynote to a PDF, it will not let you click on anything. It won't let you move anything. It won't let you do any of that kind of stuff unless you actually go into the PDF software and add it there. Because that's the whole point of making a PDF, is you don't want people to mess with things, which includes clicking links, unfortunately. So there's that. And I also got a question about my favorite podcast and YouTube people. I haven't been listening to podcasts. I'm kind of hot or cold on podcasts. Like I'll listen to them for a while and then I stop listening to them for a while. The main one I've been listening to now actually is on YouTube. It's Ali Abdaal, Deep Dive with Ali Abdaal, and it is a podcast, but I listen to it on YouTube. I don't know why I listen to it in the car, so like I'm not looking at it. It's like on the seat next to me, but I do it on YouTube and not on a podcast. I don't know. Don't ask me why, but that's what I've been doing. So I've been enjoying that. I also like his content in general. I don't follow any TPT people, not because I'm against them, but just because I want to make sure that my content is not derivative. And so sometimes I find if I am too in tune to what other people in my same space are doing, it kind of gets too close to their stuff and I don't like that. So I'm okay with people outside of my space listening to, but I don't like doing that. So if you're a TPT person and you're not talking about TPT things, like go ahead and, you know, listen to whatever. But I don't, just for that reason. And then other than that, YouTube wise, I've been listening to a lot of Alex Hormozy videos. His stuff is a little bit different, so, you know, bear that in mind. And Ali Abdaal, those have been my biggest two right now. And I've been watching a lot of bullet journal videos. Especially in the afternoons. I have found that playing like a bullet journal video and like listening, this sounds so dumb, listening to a video, like it's on the seat next to me, I'm not messing with it because I'm in the car, but listening to it while I am driving home, listening to someone like set up spreads, just like really relaxes me for some reason. It's like, it's very chill, it's very predictable, I don't have to think too hard, and it's been really nice in the afternoons because sometimes, like today, I was feeling very like just stimulated leaving, because, you know, I teach elementary music and like it's a stimulating job, and so it was nice. It's nice to have that like as a little bit of calm down. So those are honestly what I've been listening to and watching. Blair Lamb, I like her. She has not bullet journal videos, but hers are more like vlogs and that kind of stuff. Angie Belmar is always one of my favorites. She's not very consistent, which is why she is not my favorite, because if she was consistent, she would be my favorite, but she's very inconsistent. Like she posted every day for the first 25 days of December, and then she just posted a new video like yesterday for the first time, and that's really irritating to me. I do not like the hot and cold stuff, so I've tried really hard not to do that to you on here, coming off of Christmas especially. Like that was a lot. I did take a little bit of time off, but like a week, not like a long time. And then I've been trying to post every 3 to 5 days is kind of what I'm shooting for at the moment. We'll see where it ends up. So that's my list of people I listen to. I'm very odd about like what I will listen to and what I will watch, because it's all very different. I don't have a lot of like I'm not like, oh, I go and I watch these things. Like I have a variety of things, but I'm very much like, I will watch everything that this person puts out, and I don't want to see anything by new people. Like YouTube will be like, you may know this person. I'm like, no, I don't know them, and I don't want you to suggest them. But if I follow you, like I'm gonna be the most loyal follower and I'm gonna watch everything you put up. It's very strange. I have no good reasoning for that. It's just the weird thing that I do. So there's that. There's a couple of questions, and this was longer than I meant it to be. I need to go eat because I need to go to choir. I'm hungry, but eating requires effort because I have to go make food. It's quite a scam. Anyway, I will go finish my coffee and find some food and head off to choir because we have a concert this month. So cheers, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.